This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Diane Roberts. France's President Emmanuel Macron discussed the Ukraine crisis with U.S. counterpart Joe Biden Sunday ahead of a meeting with Russian leader Vladimir Putin, both leaders' office said. The two leaders discussed, quote, ongoing diplomatic and deterrence efforts in response to Russia's continued military buildup on Ukraine's border and affirmed their support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, end quote, the White House said in a statement. The 40-minute phone call was part of coordination efforts, the French presidency said, before Macron travels to Moscow Monday and on to Kiev Tuesday, where he's due to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The French leader has indicated that he's going to, quote, discuss terms of a de-escalation of the crisis. Over the weekend, Macron also held talks with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg, plus the leaders of Baltic nations. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Sunday Russia could invade Ukraine, quote, any day, end quote, launching a conflict that would come at, quote, an enormous human cost, end quote. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is facing criticism over his government's response to Russia-Ukraine tensions ahead of his trip to Washington. AP correspondent Naomi Shannon has more.
While Scholz says Moscow would pay a high price in the event of an attack, the German leader's response to Russia's aggression against Ukraine has drawn criticism both abroad and at home. His government's refusal to supply lethal weapons to Ukraine, increase its troop presence in Eastern Europe, and declare which sanctions it would support against Russia has left many U.S. officials questioning Germany's stance. The country's heavy reliance on Russian supplies of natural gas and former Chancellor Gerhard Schröder's ties to President Vladimir Putin are also areas of concern as Scholz seeks to reaffirm U.S.-German ties. I'm Naomi Shannon.
This is VOA News. Iraq's Supreme Court suspended a former foreign minister's presidential bid Sunday over corruption allegations, and many lawmakers said they would boycott a Monday vote for a new head of state, prolonging a political standoff. The court said the candidacy of Hoshyar Zabari, a Western-friendly, veteran Iraqi Kurdish statesman, could not proceed until corruption charges from a separate 2016 stint as finance minister were dealt with. Costa Ricans began casting ballots Sunday in an election with a record 25 candidates vying to succeed outgoing President Carlos Alvarado. But the voting is unlikely to produce an outright winner, and a second round is scheduled for April. No candidate is expected to win more than 40% of votes, the threshold to avoid a runoff between the two top vote getters, according to the latest polling. All 57 seats of the Legislative Assembly are also up for grabs. The Speaker of Tunisia's parliament, which was suspended last year, Sunday rejected a decision by President Kais Saied to dissolve the North African country's Supreme Judicial Council. The Speaker said in a statement signed by the presidency of the House of Representatives that he opposed the interference. Tunisia's Association of Judges said Sunday that President Kais Saied's decision to dissolve the North African country's Supreme Judicial Council was a dangerous and unprecedented retreat from constitutional gains it has made. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson Sunday declared a state of emergency to help deal with an unprecedented 10-day occupation by protesting truckers that has shut down much of the core of the Canadian capital. Protesters have paralyzed downtown Ottawa for the past 9 days, with some participants waving Confederate or Nazi flags and some saying they wanted to dissolve Canada's government. Police said they'd charged 4 people with hate crimes and were investigating threats against public figures jointly with the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The so-called Freedom Convoy began as a movement against a Canadian vaccine requirement for cross-border truckers, but has turned into a rallying point against public health measures and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government. Austrian authorities said Sunday 9 people have died in 3 days of more than 100 avalanches rolling across Austria. Most of the avalanches hit the western region, and Friday alone saw 5 fatalities, rescue services said. From Washington, via remote, I'm Diane Roberts, VOA News.